but you've already been welcome. My name is Liisa Ladouceur. I'll be leading this Q&A discussion as part of Unscripted, which I think for tonight is a particularly good name for the event. Thank you for coming, and especially thank you for staying. If I read everybody's resumes, we'd be here before the staff needs to go home. So I'll just introduce the members, and then you'll learn more about them, although I suspect quite a few of you know about them. So I think, if I got this right, we have Alex Schmoll, or Pratten, Richard Moule, Cailen Dye, Warren Pratten, and Bernie Koenig. So another round of applause for that. I've done this a lot, interviewing artists, but I've never interviewed artists right after they finished a performance for an hour. I feel like it's more of a sports press conference, like, so, how do you feel about your performance tonight? Okay, I'll take that. Art, I want to start with you. Many people here will know that you've been making music since the 60s and bringing art and music from London and Canada to the world for decades now. So congratulations on that career and for forming yet another new band at this time. The gallery promoted this as like an intergenerational group, and so although I never ask people their exact age because I don't like it when someone does it to me, we do have people here from their 40s into their 80s, which I think is amazing. Because once I hit 40, I couldn't get friends to go out for dinner and a movie. So to get them to join a band, I think is like quite something. So Art, if you could tell us the seeds of the Magic Daffodils.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm unadjusted.
What were the seeds of this group? Why another new group at this time?
Well, actually, I may be the wrong one to ask because I was invited after Cailen and Alex were playing, and I think you were part of that. So I came in a little late. Maybe they could explain a little bit.
Well, I think it's mostly on Cailen for bringing the bunch together. He introduced me individually to all of these guys except for Warren. It's a story. But so we had all played together over the years, over a space of like 8 to 10 years or something like that. And just over the pandemic, we were all sort of at loose ends wondering what to do. And so we kind of clustered together at my farm, which has got a big outdoor space, and we were able to sit 6 to 10 feet apart and jam away in the great outdoors. And it initially wasn't there was no band initially. It just, we kept playing together because we liked playing together, and it kind of coalesced, and we got a little more practiced and a little more intuitive about interacting with each other, and that's how the band came about. But Art can take on it.
So this is your first public performance, as I understand it, with like people that you don't know being able to come and see what you do. With the style of music that you make, how is it different having an audience or not? Because I'm guessing when I watch you play that, like, I closed my eyes for a while and it was still a great experience, and I see a lot of active listening going on, not so many like David Lee Roth high kicks. So how is it different playing to an audience tonight?
Oh, to tell you the truth, the audience disappears for me. You have to, what's happening up here is a crosstalk amongst people playing. Everybody's got something to say, and you can carry on a conversation, just 2 or 3 people in the band, or the whole band at one time or another. I've related this in relationship to the Spasm Band, is it's sort of like being in a hotel with a bunch of friends drinking wine beer in our case, wine, higher class place. But you can have these conversations between two people, and then somebody down at the end will join in and say, no, that wasn't quite right. And you'll have a three-way conversation, and somebody else will be having a conversation in the other direction. At some point, they all come together, and it's a thing. And it works very much like that with the band. Except you try, and they include everybody in the conversation.
I agree with that largely. I sort of look out at the audience, but it's faces. I don't really recognize them as people as such, because I'm so busy, especially being the drummer, I'm in the middle of everything. So I want to hear a pattern, so I'll turn, I'm listening to Art, I'm going to respond to him. Oh, Alex is doing this pattern, I got to turn around now and listen to him. So for me, it's what role do I play in the conversation? And sometimes it's, well, the hell with them, I'm going to say what I want to say. So I do my little drum solo in the middle of things, and then people respond to me because they pick up on a pattern that I'm playing. One of the reasons I have such a large drum set is I can respond to patterns. I can actually play almost melodic patterns on the drums. So I hear a pattern and I can sort of respond to that. So my role in the middle is a little bit different maybe than somebody on an end, but again, it's the conversation in the band is what we're all about.
Richard, before you performed tonight and we're setting up, I was, talking to you about your Pantera shirt, and you—
Great show.
And you said something I found interesting. You said, well, what we do up here is really not that much different from heavy metal or other types of groups. That's not an obvious thing to me, so can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, I mean, heavy metal is organized noise. I mean, in song structure, still using distortion, still using amplification, still using feedback, pounding drums, wailing high frequencies in guitar solos. That's just more organized than what we're doing. I mean, so when people talk about extreme music or outsider music or whatever you want to call it, or improvised noise, which is what we call it, heavy metal is just song-based. So it's just a matter of, if you like extreme volume and distortion and noise and feedback, you can go and hear it in a more organized, composed setting, like at a heavy metal show, or you can hear with saxophones or drums at a free jazz show, which is still probably more organized than what we're doing. Or you can just get lost in the wall, often a wall of sound, what we're doing. The other thing is, I saw Pantera, 20,000 people, it was a wall of sound. It was a great wall of sound. And then, I could hear some vocals and things like that. But I got lost in the drone for about 2 hours. Then I took out my earplugs but that's where I come from in hearing that.
You said extreme music, and I'm looking at you, and you all seem like very, normal gents, and I'm wondering, do you have extreme personalities, or what? Maybe the question is, what personality traits or characteristics make a musician suited for this type of music and this type of performance? Anyone?
Go ahead. You're right.
I wanted to be what they call free bop drummer, sort of in the Max Roach style, keeping time but very, very busy and very open. And I found myself playing in a free jazz group, which was one step beyond. So I wasn't so much keeping time, but I was listening and interacting. This is one step from that. And I met Richard and Art through a free jazz group that I used to play in. And so this is, for me, it's an extension of that. So call it noise, call it jazz, call it just improvised music. As I like to say, the real originator of heavy metal was Johann Sebastian Bach. Just listen to his organ fugues. So it's a continuum of music, and we listen to it all, and we're all part of it.
Question for Cailen, and also for Warren as like the young men, in the younger men in the group. What have you learned? What have you learned from collaborating with people of different generation and from different music scenes?
Go ahead. All right. Well, I've got an interesting perspective, right? Because I'm Art's son, and I grew up with the Spasm Band. So for me, the Spasm Band was perfectly normal. In fact, it was like, and I was friends with the other kids in the Spasm Band. We all went to their concerts. We'd run around. It was like, I think so.
They were the roadies.
We were the roadies. So it's kind of an interesting thing because learning from them it's not really a learning from them. It was, I grew up in it, right? And so I grew up with that, and this just seems natural and normal to me.
I'd say it's kind of similar for me. I was a fan of Spasm Band for many, like 20 years ago. I was going to see them play, and I don't know. I never really think too much of the age difference. I mean, it's obvious that they're like about 10 or 12 years older than me, or more. But I don't know. It's just I like the collaboration. I love the conversations we have and the history of all their playing and the stories and shows they've been to, seen and played, and it's always interesting conversation. And I just I don't know. I can't say it's like it's a tough one.
It's not a generational thing.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't know. It just so happens that we're of these age groups, but I just feel like these are the people that are doing this kind of stuff that we just kind of come together, and it's just this is what works. So yeah, I've been playing with Alex for maybe 15 years now, and so at this point it's kind of it doesn't seem like a learning thing for me, but it's great.
I've been playing with Richard for we're close to 15 years now too.
Yeah.
And Cailen met us and we did some stuff when he was organizing those things.
Yeah.
I know Richard and I think one of the genesis of this is there was a night at the old Forest City Gallery. Alex and Cailen did a show, and then Richard and I followed, and then we did a thing together, and we thought, oh, this was great, we should do this more. And so I think that was at least part of the genesis that we had done that. But age, as I like to say, I'm 8.0. I refuse to grow up. So age is really irrelevant here. We all bring something to it. We all learn from each other.
I think we all love the idea of improvisation. And I think if you're going to nail it down, Liisa, it's the concept of freedom. With this, we get to be free in terms of, so it's not in exploring sounds. So I would say this is, it's going to sound very highfalutin, but it's truly, we're just exploring sounds and how sounds come together, how sounds work in tandem with each other, how they separate. I mean, Art's talking about the conversation. That's the key. And like with any conversation, it changes. It's different. And but there's also with any conversation, there's a freedom to it, especially with the freedom when people that you know, and that expresses itself in a multitude of ways. So I think it's the freedom that comes with that. The other thing is there's a series of discoveries. I never know how these things are going to work out. Just before we started, Art was telling me a story about the Spasm Band, where the Spasm Band always had a plan before they did some of their gigs. Art will be able to tell you whether that plan worked out or not.
It didn't. The strange thing was, before we would play, whenever we got together, we were always disagreeing about this and that. Not fatal disagreements, but we were different people. And before we played, we'd often go out for supper. And somebody would say, what we should do is play a short first number. Which Cailen said. And I said, sure, because after 50 years, I knew that wasn't going to happen. But the thing is, for me, it coming out of the Spasm Band. I can't read music, and I can't play music. I can barely repeat some of the little phrases that I like. What I sort of practice is making noises that I can remember. I can make a noise on this part of this instrument or that instrument. And I can use that. And then I wait till we start playing and I think, oh, I know a noise will go there. I'll know a noise will go there. They brought out a serious tax by some university professor in Ireland at some point on the Spasm Band. And they had a list of all kinds of bands and noise bands. And they called, the Spasm Band fell under the heading of inept. Which I could identify with immediately and thought, hey, he's really good, he's got it. Because for myself, I've built literally dozens of instruments, somewhat like what I'm playing tonight. And I had a habit of building them and getting to the point where I was sort of comfortable with it, proficient with it. And I'd scrap it and build something I didn't know how it would work. So I was always inept on whatever I was playing. And depending on who you talk to, I'm always inept on everything. But there's a feeling you get. I've talked to professional musicians, as we all have at some time or another, and they get really nervous. They've practiced something over and over again, and they know that they're supposed to hit a certain note at a certain time. And they know this before they even start. And they can be concerned, am I going to be able to do this tonight? That is not a concern. You know?
I want to pick up on something about Art and Richard said. I actually am a school musician. I spent 2 years in music school as a percussion major. I had hand injury, stopped that. When I was able to finally heal and I started playing again. So I've done everything from playing a symphony orchestra to playing a punk band. And everything in between. And to me, music is music is music. And, it doesn't matter. As long as there's good music and bad music, that's it. I hate the word genre. To me, it's a four-letter word. Don't use genre, just listen to music. So I come from that school with the idea of freedom and being able to improvise without any kind of restraints. And that's not entirely true because, as we all say, the conversation. I hear Art play something, I'm going to respond to what he's doing. If you notice when I'm playing, sometimes I'll totally look on him, or sometimes I'm totally looking at whatever. I'm hearing something. Because part of my role as a drummer, as the rhythmic player, is to interact and respond. So to me, that's really important. But the freedom of doing it is just absolutely wonderful. The whole idea of improvisation. So, do we have a plan? Of course not. Do I practice a lot? Yes, I do. Do I practice certain kinds of things? Yes. Do I play those kinds of things here? Sometimes, because they're part of what I do. But do I think about what I'm playing when I'm playing? No, I'm responding to what I'm hearing.
That's one of the things that you probably noticed tonight. We don't always look at the audience. Okay? I deliberately do make sure they're not sneaking out. But the thing is, you have to glance across and you see somebody and you can, in the case of a guitar player or something, you can watch their hands and you can anticipate where this thing is going. Whether they're coasting or they're onto something. And the same thing with the drums. If I turn and I can watch Bernie's shoulders, I can start to see how he leans. I know he's not coasting anymore. He's on to something. Whatever it is. How long it'll last, I don't know. But you know that it's happening. It's a little harder with people on synths because they're sneaky. They can set something up and go and drink a beer and the thing will play. It's hard to know where they're at, but you can still do it. But you have to have the communication. Actually, a long line like this makes it a little difficult. The real thing is, as Alex said, the farm was great because we were in a big circle. You could see everybody. I could watch Bernie's feet, which was important. But that whole thing happens. And you tell the mood of the people. Some people you can just look across and you see that they're having trouble with something. They're trying something that's not getting right, and they're getting a degree of frustration. You can see that intensity build. And you can see them walk out of it at times. Or you can just see them give up and do something entirely different. But there is this communal thing going on. And the audience is almost outside it. It's nice to have an audience. Because in big halls, they pay money and then the hall pays you. But the thing is that they're not essential. You get a good thing going and a noise band can't swing. You'd think it was a 30s dance band. You know, not quite swing and sway with Sammy Kaye, but going in that direction. But there's something about, and Bernie probably knows the quote about trying to talk about music.
It's like
It's
dancing
almost
about
impossible,
architecture.
You're always grasping for something, and it's not always clear even to the person trying to explain.
I feel like there's a version of this show that's more of a sketch where the audience just leaves and the band doesn't know and keep playing forever.
I was looking outside and I noticed it was raining really hard, so then my whole worry of anyone leaving was, I was like, no, they're stuck here.
A big influence on me, among other things, is John Cage. I don't know if anybody's familiar with John Cage. He pioneered the idea of silence. Actually, his famous piano piece, which is called 4 minutes, 33 seconds, the pianist comes up, picks up the thing, the keyboard, puts out a stopwatch and doesn't play. The first time I saw that performance, people around me started whispering, when's he going to start to play? Then I realized, it's about the audience, it's not about the performer. Because John Cage had the idea that music is all around us, if we just listen. And I think one of the things we try to do is create this kind of conversation. So it's noise, but it's music. And anything is music, we structure it, how we hear it. So we're playing noise, I hear Art doing something on his violin, I respond to it on the drums. It's no longer noise, it's music.
A perfect example of what he's talking about. Anybody that's been close to a public pool full of little kids, you can be a half a block away or more, and there's this sound that comes. And it undulates, does all kinds of strange things. You know, nobody's orchestrating that. It's just kids being kids and mothers yelling at them not to be. But the thing is, there are things like that. Sometimes a well-tuned harp is really nice to drive along, probably ahead of rather than behind. There's just this noise, this nice pulse that goes on. It's just simply a nice thing.
So are we intergenerational kids? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe.
Does anyone have any questions? You've been sitting in.
You guys keep bringing up the fact that you kind of have like a conversation between each other during that switch melody. I can tell. It's fun to watch you guys look at each other, and I can see and hear you guys respond to each other and see this going on. But I'm really curious between learning how to have this conversation with one person versus the next, and adding more people to this group, and how working on that conversation together has developed over time.
We're incredibly tall.
Could everyone hear the question?
Go ahead. Yeah, Alex.
Oh, okay. Well, it's interesting that you brought that question up because it's a really good one, particularly with the size of this band. And actually, Warren and I were having this conversation yet again as we were warming up for tonight. And the big challenge is really not to have ideas and to perform, but it's to lay back and listen and find your space, because when there are this many of us and we're all, potentially all churning away at maximum volume, that's not a conversation. That's overwhelming noise. And sometimes we do that and bring whatever we're doing to a climax, and that can be quite a cathartic moment. But more importantly, the challenge, particularly for me, has been to sort of learn to listen and learn to find the spaces so that what I'm doing is complementing what the other guys are doing. And that, and at times, that means sitting out and just not making any noise while you sort of sense the direction, what's going on. I'm a big fan of sort of the evolution of sound. So if you take what the minimalists were doing, which was just very small chunks of ideas, and then repeating them, my favorite part of that is to feel the evolution of that sound. And it really does take time to, I feel like I'm going in circles, but it really does take time to find your space and lay back. And that's, for me, what makes it work.
As a drummer, that's one of the hardest things to do, because I'm the rhythm guy. I'm supposed to keep the thing going. But no, as you notice, I often stop and leave a space, and I have to listen to what's going on. So that idea of stopping and listening is just so crucial to what we're doing.
Well, one of the other things quickly is, and you heard it tonight, we'll be playing along, a bunch of us, and then it'll look like this, the end. It'll sort of come down to 2 or 3 or 4 people playing, and they get down to sometimes 1 or 2. And there should be some sort of a fade out. There isn't. Because somebody thinks, that's not half bad. And you want to add to it. And then somebody, oh, that's not bad. And then all of a sudden the thing builds up. And sometimes you can have 3 or 4 perfectly good endings that you run right over, and the one that you finally settle on is terrible. It's a matter of just falling apart. And you've just passed up.
We should have ended it back.
I've seen a lot of Hollywood movies that would describe it the same way.
We should have ended it back way, yes.
Sometimes it's like, it should be over, and then like, okay, he's gonna stop, and then someone else starts making sounds. And then I'm like, crap, I gotta go back in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like comes in waves where it starts fading out and then it builds back up, and then it's like a slow fade.
Perhaps one of the biggest issues is that I like the quiet spots. So I probably am guilty of trying to keep things moving forward, because they show up and they're all very enthusiastic and they play, and the first 5-10 minutes, everyone's trying everything. And then it's quiet, so that's my space.
And that's why I brought my questions.
and I like those spaces. And then, I'm guilty of pieces along it.
But we all are to some extent.
I think that in some ways, the sound or the music, if you want to call it a performance, kind of escapes us all. It becomes its own thing.
Oh, it takes on life of its own.
So yeah, it's like someone else is playing something and someone else can't help but do something, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're gonna play some longer piece or whatever. But it's just it's its own thing. So it's all part of it.
Well, the interesting, I love listening to us, because it's like this roller coaster, right? It goes up and down, up and down. You know, over the span of 10 minutes, we probably hit 3 crescendos and kind of mellowed out for the other parts.
It's climbing up that's the hard part.
It occurs to me as I listen to you, and I know we don't have too much time, and if there's any last questions, I'll make sure you can ask, but you really do exist outside the parameters of the music business or the way most musicians operate. And I'm wondering on a more practical level, like, what is necessary for the kind of music you do to continue this continuum? Is it spaces like this, or places that will let you do residencies? Is it, I don't know, independent wealth? Is it like what is required to keep something like this going in our current artistic climate?
I think it's our friendship. It's as simple as that. I think, I mean, we're adults with responsibilities and commitments. I think it's our friendship, and I think that's where we're carrying us. As long as we enjoy doing what we do and interacting and having conversations. One of the things that Art pointed out is, as soon as we usually finish playing, we always go and hang out and have something to drink or something to eat, and it's the same conversations that we were having sonically usually continue verbally. So that those ongoing conversations don't usually stop. As opposed to answer your question directly about where do we fit in, Art's been doing this a lot longer than I have. So Art can speak to that directly.
No, we can't. I don't think you need to fit in anyway.
We would play anyway, whether there was an audience. We had a farm for a couple summers. If we can get together, we got Bernie's basement, play there. You want to play, and we go and play, and sometimes it's surprisingly little conversation. It's just, move over that way a little, like you haven't got enough space or something or other. It's all sort of practical things. And the other thing that's interesting is we can't sit around later and talk about what we're doing, because there's no real musical words to explain what we're doing. I mean, if you were playing, I suppose I haven't, a symphony orchestra, you can talk about structures and one thing and another, what was going on within the band. There's nothing that explains what we're doing. It's hard to have a conversation, so the conversation drifts off on something else. Maybe sometimes hardware, a foot pedal or something or other. But there's, except the two people involved in the conversation, that's a pass. It's a different sort of camaraderie. One of the things that the Spasm Band is still together and has been together since I think about 65. Murray Favreau, one of the guys in the band from the absolute beginning, knew him before we got to the band, lives in the city, play with him all the time, go to his shows. I live maybe a 15-minute drive from Murray's house. I've been in Murray's house 3 times in maybe 60 years, okay? And that's not because we're not friends. It's just that we all live in different worlds. And then we come together. I have no idea what it's like for these guys teaching. He's got a business going on. I worked at graphics in a newspaper. I talk to Warren sometimes about his work. It's very brief. I understand from his son all he does is talk on the phone and make funny pictures. We all have other lives. This is the thing that connects us. And I don't know if it works. I suspect it does for in that grouping like that. There's sort of a strange, like, I've had a chance, really, to travel the world, and I meet people all over the place. You meet them in green rooms and on the street. I spent half a night talking to a guy sitting on a curb in Newfoundland at the a festival there. There's a camaraderie. You only need to know somebody for a few minutes. Or even, in a band that you've heard of or you've heard. There's something that goes on, and I can't explain it. I'm probably doing badly now. But there's something happening. There's something happening here, and we don't know what it is. But it's good. It's a good thing.
It's just for the money, right?
Is it wearing the funny for the money?
Is there anyone have a last question? Then I will thank you all, and I will thank all the members of Magic Daffodils. There is a record. It's on Bandcamp, which is a great place to get new music.
Free.
It's free download on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
And you guys are going to stick around for a few minutes?
We're gonna do a nice set.
We're gonna play again or not?
I think we want to wrap it up.
We're being thrown out.
Oh, okay, we're being thrown out. That's fine.
There's an after party at Richard's house.
We'd just like to thank everybody involved for inviting us out to come and make some noise. So Sarah and everybody else at TAP, and
And thank you for all being here.
and